Hello and welcome to the 2020 NATS virtual conference poster sessions. This is phase one, where you will get to hear all of our poster presenters give a 5-minute talk on their poster research. We've got a great lineup of cutting edge and up and coming and really exciting projects that have been done throughout the last years that are really an exceptional contribution to the conference. And now we need your help. We would like to put out a call for questions so that for phase two of the poster sessions, we could do a live Q&A that we'll record prior to the conference and drop each day of the conference. And so we are asking you, NATS membership, that if you have a question regarding any of these posters, if you would send it to me, Dr. Nicholas Perna, at nkperna@mc.edu, I will take those questions and ask them of our poster presenters during our Q&A session. I would like to have those questions by Friday, June the 12th. So we're excited. We're excited to have this opportunity to share this research with you guys. Please, if you have a chance, check out all 3 poster sessions. If you have a few questions that you'd like to ask the authors, send them to me and I will get them out to everyone in the session. Thank you so much for your time and your efforts. I look forward to seeing everyone at the virtual conference later in June.
Hello, my name is Lisa Barksdale. This presentation is Modules for Nodules, Patient-Driven Strategies for Vocal Budgeting. I am both a singing voice instructor at Furman University and a speech and language pathologist with Greenville ENT, part of Prisma Health in Greenville, South Carolina. The intent of my poster was to give the reader lists of ideas for reducing voice use based on the workplace successes of several of my singing patients who had nodules. For this video presentation, I will give some of the highlights by job category. In general, of course, patients followed standard protocol for a voice evaluation and adopted healthy vocal hygiene habits. They focused on using a resonant tone tied to the breath and addressed one parameter at a time. For instance, taking appropriate breaths when completing a voice-centered task such as reading aloud to the class. We discussed the acoustics in their workspaces and determined amplification and postural changes they needed to make. I will now discuss the various categories of these singers and a few strategies they have been using effectively. For college students, logging voice use for a day to increase awareness, using text-to-speech apps such as Speak For Me where the accent could be changed, mouthing the words in ensemble rehearsals while others phonated. For public speakers, making public appearances, planning a list of questions in advance to encourage other people to do the talking when possible, and planning periods of silence between back-to-back events. For worship leaders, encouraging other members of the team to take the lead in songs, taking a meditative break in the middle of rehearsal where no one is allowed to talk. For parents of young children, instead of yelling, singing their frustrations operatically, clean up your room, cheering silently with gestures at sporting events. And at home, using a sound effect with a phone or noisemaker that means come here or stop. For the high school English teacher, using students or professionals on the internet for reading passages, poetry, and plays aloud. Pre-recording lectures that tend to be repeated throughout the day. For the elementary school classroom teacher, for transitions to new activities, singing pre-recorded vocalises for the teacher to reset the voice and the children to sing along. Reading books such as Lacey Walker, Nonstop Talker, and Decibella to get the class on board with good vocal health. Music teachers tend to be the most prone to vocal fold nodules, so for elementary music teachers, using a rhythmic pattern for quiet, giving the students jobs such as signaler for quiet or teacher for leading the hello song, playing instruments for call and response activities, humming with students to reset the teacher's voice, using the free stance recording that leads movement instead of the teacher speaking the instructions. For the middle school choral director, telling students about the teacher's vocal health challenges to encourage empathy and accountability, letting the choir sing more than the teacher talks, and each semester gathering ideas from the students by writing on the board, not talking, for joint goals regarding cooperative behavior and fun rewards. And finally, the high school music teacher who also teaches private lessons using a dry erase board with phrases that the teacher tends to repeat, pointing instead, recording the warm-up routine and letting the students lead, recording individual warm-ups on students' phones and modeling less frequently, and having the student and teacher watch in the mirror side by side for tension, holding each other accountable, using visual cues rather than speaking. In conclusion, all of these patients have reported increased clarity and reduced fatigue after being followed for a year or more. You may contact me for the full presentation at lisa.barksdale@furman.edu or lisa.barksdale@prismahealth.org. Thanks so much.
Hello, my name is André Chiang, and I am a soon-to-be assistant professor of voice at Oklahoma State University.
Hi there, my name is Kurt Erickson. I am the resident composer with San Francisco's Leader Alive. I'm also a professor of music and chair of my department at Cosumnes River College in Sacramento, California.
All right, and we're going to jump right into the poster information. So, what is your bullet? A new 4-piece song cycle for baritone by Kurt Erickson using poetry by Brian Turner. Brian Turner was a soldier deployed in Iraq, and all the poetry in the cycle was written when he was deployed. The unique part of this project is that it was commissioned as a consortium, which Kurt will talk about in the next slide. And this cycle is the winner of the 2020 NATS Art Song Composition Competition. So, Kurt.
Yeah, thank you, Andre. For me, the consortium idea is really all about access. As a composer, how do you get a piece of your music to the greatest number of singers? Well, my solution in this particular case was to basically waive my commissioning fees, invite singers to join the commissioning consortium so long as they agreed to publicly perform the work during the 2019-2020 season. I reached out to singers via social media pages with few expectations of success. To my utmost surprise, singers really responded favorably. Just under half of the 30 or so scheduled performances took place before COVID-19 shut down our concert halls. Traditional media picked up on the uniqueness of the project in printed interviews and podcasts. And I found that this could be a really effective model for composers and singers alike moving forward.
I agree. So let's talk a little bit about the music. Here, Bullet is the title song. It introduces us to the bullet through a reverent quasi-recitative opening, an excited ostinato buildup, and a structured improvisational climax and release. Eulogy takes the bullet and uses it for devastating effect. Using different keys to distinguish nature in the bullet, the piece ramps up until the gunshot, which we realize is the suicide of one of Turner's fellow soldiers, Private Miller. The third song is a soldier's Arabic, and it takes the culture clash and introduces more unique harmonies into the fold. Polyrhythm and a spoken recitation of the poem make this song unique, as well as the attacca into Curfew, the final song. Curfew takes all the themes of before and settles them, making the abnormal normal. Compositional techniques like word painting, leitmotif, and musical ciphers are used to close out the cycle.
Well, for me, speaking about this, the loss of Private Miller is really central to the set. It's the idea of mourning the personal in a public space. Brian Turner honors him in his poetry, and I really wanted to do the same in this set. So what I did is I created a musical cipher spelling out his name, musical alphabet. I'll put this up, see if you can see it here. You create A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The rest of the letters fall underneath it. So his name, Miller, sounds like this. I used a couple flats to add color. Now you put this in the piece itself, you'll hear it in the right hand as the notes just sort of pop out against these atmospheric harmonies. Now for me, I don't expect people to understand this, but it's more of sort of a structural element. It's an act of homage. It's sort of his DNA, as it were, infused into the piece. It serves, I think, as a nice ending not only to the final piece, but the set as a whole.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. So for more information, we have a QR code to the poster, as you can see on your screen. The music can be purchased from Classical Vocal Reprints. I personally wrote a dissertation that is on the LSU Digital Commons. An excerpt from the cipher will close out the video. Thank you for your time.
Triggering my tongue's explosives.
Hello, my name is Drake Dantzler of Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan. Our team for this research was undergraduate music major Caroline Roberts and myself at Oakland University, paired with Juliano Codino and Adam Rubin at the Lakeshore Professional Voice Center. More detailed information and a complete poster can be found by following the QR code on each slide. A flowball device is a real-time breath feedback device consisting of a ball that is lifted into the air by the user. This device is used in voice studios, combining the use of visual feedback with properties of a semi-occluded vocal tract. Our research indicated that the use of the flowball could potentially benefit three kinds of singers, as pictured on the left: pressed phonators, scared under-engagers, and singers who insist they are using their air. Motor learning research has indicated that focus location has an effect on both motor learning and motor performance. This experiment was designed to test the effects of a flowball on collegiate-age singers and attempt to quantitatively examine the effects of local and distal focuses on phonated flow vocal tasks. 8 collegiate-age singers participated in this study. They phonated into a flowball device using 2 common vocal patterns: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 1, 3, 5, 8, 5, 3, 1. Tempo and pitch were maintained during the duration of the experiment using a reference pitch and a metronome. Prior to and after the interventions, the subjects completed a set of baseline tests following the vocal patterns. Subjects were measured using an electroglottograph and a phonatory aerodynamic system. A flowball device was secured a set distance away from a reference ruler, and the experiment was videotaped to measure ball height. In the intervention, the subjects completed 10 iterations of each exercise while phonating into the flowball for a total of 20 iterations. During the intervention, the subjects were instructed to either focus on a local focus with the phrasing internal musculature, or a distal one with the phrasing the air at the end of the tube. After a rest period, the subjects were then asked to complete the baseline testing, intervention, and post-intervention testing utilizing the focus they had not used in the previous intervention. 2 measurements displayed statistically significant changes after the flowball interventions. The closed quotient of the glottal phase reduced 1.6% plus or minus 1.5%, and the sound pressure level increased 0.77 decibels plus or minus 0.42 decibels. In other words, after using the flowball, singers' vocal cords were open for longer during phonation, and they phonated louder. With regards to ball height, most notably, about half the subjects had a strong correlation to mean ball height, and about half had no correlation. This suggests that some subjects utilized a consistent flow approach to maintaining the ball height, while some were trying varied flow approaches or lacked the skill to maintain a steady technique. Also, despite the stated objective of maintaining a stable ball height, 13 of the 16 singers had an increase of deviations throughout the experiment. In other words, most subjects became worse at the stated motor task objective. There was no statistically significant change in any category related to local or distal focus. An item of note is that only 3 singers were able to reduce deviations during the experiment. They're noted in blue on the slide, and all were utilizing distal focus. In the studio, it is hypothesized that 3 types of singers would benefit from flow ball usage. Most obviously, the pressed phonators, singers who squeeze their chords together too much and need more flow to bring more warmth to the sound or to release laryngeal tension. Also, singers who undersing or are scared of creating volume could benefit. Singers using the flow ball produced more volume without being instructed to sing louder. Scared singers could focus on a task related to the ball and gain confidence in producing more sound while avoiding volume-related language. Finally, what we are calling, but I am using my air singers. Most singers using the flow ball increased their mean ball height over the interventions, meaning they were using more flow. A singer who already believes they are utilizing enough flow could be instructed to maintain a steady ball height on their exercises or repertoire. This would cause most singers to increase flow quantity without needing the specific instruction to increase flow, potentially leading to a greater understanding of flow engagement. Some limitations did emerge during the study. Ball flight instability during vocalization was significant. While ball height appeared to be a good measure for gross airflow, it would not be useful in fine-tuning flow rates. Finally, in general, local and distal testing provided no significant results. Considering the substantial evidence of distal focus on motor skills, it is hypothesized that the visual feedback element of the task interfered with the distal focus instructions. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kayla Gautereaux. I am the Assistant Vocal Pedagogy Director and the Voice and Sound Analysis Lab Manager at New England Conservatory. Thank you for joining me for a brief overview of my main research topic of interest, wavelet decomposition as an acoustic analysis method. Spectral analysis in voice research has become a fairly ubiquitous tool. Acoustic voice analysis software programs such as Voce Vista, Overtone Analyzer, or Spectrum View that's available on my smartphone use the fast Fourier transform, which is an algorithm that decomposes the voiced signals into the components of a spectrogram. With the relative accessibility of these software programs, the majority of voice-related spectral analysis relies solely on this one algorithmic approach. Every analysis method, though, comes with trade-offs. The Fourier transform only provides information in the frequency domain and requires a windowing function to reveal information in the time domain. In this research, wavelet decomposition analysis is explored as an alternative to fast Fourier transform, as it provides detail in both the frequency and time domains simultaneously. In wavelet analysis, a scaled wavelet is shifted in time along the acoustic signal to compare the measurements of the wavelet against the signal's waveform. Without the need for a windowing function, wavelet decomposition assesses the temporal aspects of the time frequency information in a continuous fashion. As a result, this method is a useful tool to look within the fundamental period of a voiced pitch vowel, as it yields results with relatively high resolution in both the frequency and time domains. In this analysis, we run a discrete wavelet transform on the continuous data to get the time-locked frequency information of the signal. In addition, we perform an event processing step where we determine the beginning and end of each period. In order to do this, we low-pass filter the raw activity just above the fundamental frequency, and using the instantaneous phase information, find the transition points in the periodic signal. Using these events, we separate the time frequency signal into discrete period-locked segments of activity. We then stack those data in order to calculate the average activity in the time-frequency space. In addition, we use those same events to separate and stack the raw acoustic signal in order to calculate an average single-period waveform. Here is an example of this analysis method performed on a sung straight tone D4 pitched ah vowel. This is the average spectral activities in the periods of the signal we just played. The x-axis is the time in milliseconds, the y-axis is frequency, and the color axis is the power in linear scale. The bottom panel here is the period-locked average waveform of that same signal. The x-axis is the same time in milliseconds as the panel above, and the y-axis is amplitude. As you can see, in this case, the power in higher harmonic frequencies consistently fluctuates within the time frame of a single period. Note the transition from red to blue, or high to low activity over the middle frequency band of this plot. On the right, we now see an example of the same vowel sung an octave higher on the pitch D5. We see a peak in activity within the same frequency band as the D4 example. But as you can see, the power evolves over the course of the period in a very different manner. The comparison between these two results shows that the same vowel, sung an octave apart, can have widely different activity in the same vowel-defining formant bandwidths. Exploring how these patterns emerge may deepen our understanding of the production and perception of the sung voice. Thank you, NATS, for allowing me to share this exciting new research. If you would like to get in contact with me, feel free to reach out via the email address provided.
Hi there, I'm Daniel Hunter-Hawley, and I'm an Associate Professor of Voice at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, where I teach applied lessons, vocal pedagogy, and opera workshop. My poster, Three's Company, Fostering Collaborative Learning Through Partner Lessons, describes the partner lesson system I've been using for over 5 years. I hope you will download the corresponding document I've prepared, available through this QR code or the link that is included at the bottom of the screen. The document provides all of the organizational details, benefits, and answers to the most common questions I've received over the years. In this video, I'm going to highlight a few aspects of this system, and I hope that I will be able to convince you to try this with your own students. The first question you might have is, what is a partner lesson? While I have tried a few variations, the most basic version of this system involves pairing my students at the beginning of each semester. As paired partners, they attend each other's lessons each week, taking notes for each other within an online peer observation journal. The goal for this journal is not just for the singing students to have lesson notes, but to strengthen the observing students' ability to write constructive comments. No one starts off doing this well, but over 4 years of lessons, the expectation is that this skill improves and will serve them well in graduate school or as performers or teachers. In addition to filling out the journal, I also engage the observing partners to provide feedback on the spot, sometimes also inviting them to describe how they think of a particular concept in their own words. It is also great to have an extra person there to engage with for a variety of reasons. Overall, my students have loved having partner lessons and are the best advocates of the benefits. I've included several statements from students in the supporting document. In summary, students like getting to see lessons with other voice types, hearing feedback from others, and feel that they are less nervous when they sing in studio class and recitals because they are used to singing in front of their peers. I think that one of the main benefits is that they see firsthand that everyone has things to work on, and in observing their partner over a semester's worth of lessons, they recognize how steady work leads to incremental progress. There is also a better sense of community and collaboration, especially in the older students who can draw upon their memory of a peer singing from when they were partners in the past. But this isn't just for the students. My own teaching has also improved with this system because I think much more about the reasons why I select certain exercises and how I phrase my instructions. I also have become much more open to hearing concepts described by my students, phrased in new ways that may be more immediately accessible to their peers. I mentioned earlier that I've also tried a few variations of this model. One of these is to assign cross-studio partners, where one of my students is paired with a student from a colleague's studio. In addition to the students observing each other's lessons, the faculty members also attend some of the lessons, writing feedback for each other. This is not a required university-mandated observation. Nothing goes into the annual review dossier, but the friendly feedback has been enormously helpful to me. It is clear that for this system to work, either with students or adding faculty partners, there has to be a basic level of trust and respect among all involved. I think encouraging collaborative learning through a peer partner observation system not only improves student learning and engagement, but also the empathic awareness of others that can lead to a greater foundation of trust and respect within the entire program. To close, I return to the title of my poster and the use of the word fostering. No matter the level of trust and collaboration that currently exists, new students come in, people and relationships change, and one must continue to proactively provide an atmosphere that welcomes different points of view and constructive feedback without it being viewed as judgment. While I think this is valuable in the short term for students to progress, it is essential for them as they pursue careers as performers and educators. I sincerely hope you will give partner lessons a try and that you'll let me know how it goes.
My name is Jaron M. LeGrair, proud owner of the Jaron M. LeGrair Studio from Akron, Ohio, and my poster is entitled A Survey of Basic Vocal Technique, Vocal Knowledge, and Vocal Health Awareness in African American Gospel Singers and Worship Leaders. As a singer from this very demographic, I realize that many of us want to do better but don't know how to do better. The data from this survey shows that there is indeed a desire to want to learn how to use our voices better so that we can sing and use our voices for years to come. What some don't realize about the gospel technique of singing is that it's not so much about the technique itself that is brutal to the voice, it's about how we are misinformed about how to use the technique to our advantage to sing this genre. I also wanted to use this survey to help continue the conversation of developing techniques and finding resources to help this talented demographic of singers. Ultimately, I hope to aid the plight in helping this genre of singers find their voice and to use their voices in the most efficient and best way possible.
Welcome. Recurring vestibular stimulation and an ideal performing state. I'm Dr. Karen Leigh-Post. My curiosity about the relationship between movement and singing led me to the auditory and vestibular systems of the inner ear and a study of audiomotor behavior. You see, the vestibules for the detection of motion and the cochlea for the detection of sound are encased in the same bony exterior and lodged in the temporal bone of the skull. This means that the same vibrations originating with phonation and traveling through tissue and bone to our inner ear at the speed of the pitch we are singing are perceived as both sound and motion, not to mention vibration sense itself, of course. But that's only the beginning. Known as the great integrator, the vestibular system itself is both a sensory and a motor system. With an extensive neural network, it is not only capable of detecting changes in the position of our head relative to the force of gravity, it does so in order to stimulate corrective changes in our position so as to maintain equilibrium. Now, equilibrium is monitored and corrected by the vestibular system in two important ways. The vestibular system interfaces with the cerebellum to continuously monitor and control our motor systems for postural equilibrium, or our structural orientation to gravity. And it also interfaces with the autonomic system to monitor and control gravity-dependent autonomic reflexes that regulate the tone of our internal muscles, such as the heart, lungs, diaphragm, swallowing muscles, and even vocal folds that influence our sense of internal equilibrium or homeostasis. The practical significance of this is this: by purposely stimulating vestibular receptivity and consciously monitoring our position in space, that is, by collecting data, detecting information from which the spatial coordinates necessary to maintain equilibrium and optimal positioning of our effectors are calculated, we have a means by which we may consciously and cognitively interface with the unconscious systems that regulate homeostatic equilibrium, our sense of well-being. After all, the primary purpose of the nervous system is to maintain homeostasis. We are supposed to feel equal to the task. Everything else is a cry for help. For example, when we feel motion sickness, it is because our system for equilibrium is unable to solve the problem without conscious attention. Perhaps the vestibular system is being inhibited from fixing our gaze on the horizon via an involuntary reflex because our eyes are voluntarily fixed on a book. However, just as a yogi voluntarily and recurrently stimulates their system for equilibrium and posture via proprioceptive balancing tasks and spatial awareness, we as singers are uniquely well suited to do so via the additional recurring stimulation of arousal mechanisms when we vibrate our bones when singing. Thus, in recurring vestibular stimulation, we have a means by which we may voluntarily interface with the involuntary systems that regulate autonomic balance and at the same time stimulate an alert and receptive mind. Yes, we can voluntarily promote the continuous reciprocal mind-body communication necessary for optimal performance in an ideal performing state. An ideal performing state is defined by Shirley Emmons and Alma Thomas in Power Performance for Singers, is characterized by heightened awareness, vigilant attention, and autonomic balance, absent of anxiety. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katherine Skovira, and I want to thank NATS for this opportunity to speak to such a wide audience of singer educators. I'd like to speak with you first about one key concept of the three that's informing my research going forward over the next season, and that's the voice as identity, implementing assistive technology in vocal performance. You can scan the QR code or download a third-party app to read more. Now, the voice as identity is a thought that the voice is not only part of our identity, but it's crucial to how we communicate with others. So the auditory face is a concept where paralinguistic and linguistic cues combine so that we can glean an incredible amount of information, not only about the person who's speaking, but about their intent. So this is actually quite a musical list if you look at intonation, rate, pausing, volume, and pitch. Now, in a chance meeting in 2018, I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Ripple Patel of a Boston-based AI firm, Vocal ID, my co-director of Sound Lab, a contemporary music ensemble in Philadelphia, Robert Whalen, and I have been developing this project with her since. So I've donated my voice to her international voice bank, and Dr. Patel has created a synthetic voice, which I'd like to share with you today, so you can get a sense of what this technology can do for customized voices.
Hi, this is Catherine's synthetic voice. Members of the non-speaking community use speech-generating device to communicate. The most famous example is Stephen Hawking's voice, also known as Perfect Paul, which was digitized speech that went through many user interface iterations and prototypes to become the system. And the iconic voice we know today in
It goes on to talk a little bit more about how the technology has evolved. And this was actually, this is not sound sampling. I didn't previously record this. It's not phonemes that are copied and pasted. The technology has progressed from that kind of digitized speech to customized voices. And that's because Dr. Patel walked into a conference and saw an 80-year-old man speaking to an 8-year-old girl and using the same voice. And we think of Stephen Hawking's voice, and it has become part of his identity. And truly, he actually resisted updated models of this voice because he just preferred it. But the majority of people using these voices feel that it doesn't quite match their gender or their age or their mood. And frankly, what we can do with this upcoming world premiere of The Other Side of Silence by Robert Whalen is to investigate inflection and to look at the expressive potential of the voices that we're creating. So I'll be working with a variety of partners. I've been speaking with some really fantastic researchers, neuroscientists, psychologists, musicians, advocates, and people across so many different fields that the networking potential and the reach of this is really exciting. It will involve a Pierrot ensemble with singer and synthetic voice that will be used in the actual performance. We'll highlight living composers, and the actual implications for this have medical outcomes as well, because as we are able to create more expressivity in the customized voice that people can use on their assistive devices, people who are about to undergo perhaps aggressive surgery will know that on the other side of that, while they may no longer have their original speaking voice, they have the ability to now use a voice that shows that aspect of their identity. So they may engage in more aggressive and life-saving treatment as a result. So you can learn more by scanning these codes, and what I'd like you to do is to consider donating your voice to this and looking ahead to the Sound Lab performance of The Other Side of Silence. So you can scan this QR code if you'd like to learn more about how to donate your voice, and then you'll be matched with your vocal profile to someone who is in need of a voice. So I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and I look forward to talking further. Thank you very, very much, and take care.
My virtual poster is designed to give you some pointers to help you work with voice students whose cultural background is different from yours. Classically trained Western voice teachers often use language, examples, and repertoire in the voice studio that unconsciously reflect our own cultural bias. This approach can cause a disjunct between what the teacher communicates and what the student assimilates. We can refine or restate the essential cultural and pedagogical ideals that we all share through music by focusing on some key fundamentals. Here is a list of key concepts that we all currently teach in our studios. Introduce the concepts as clearly as you can and elicit student response frequently. By doing this, the student shows how well he assimilated the concept. The bonus is that I gain a better understanding of what my students are actually hearing me say, and in their own words. We both learn something new. Keeping the student's world at the core means not making assumptions about their value systems based on my cultural ideals. Their systems of government are often not democracies. They did not grow up with the freedoms we take for granted. This changes the conversation in fundamental ways. Students are often less likely to speak up about their needs. They'll expect more personal guidance from you. Don't forget to ask your student what a song means to him. He is usually pulling things from the poetry that I didn't see. Again, I learned something new. Most non-Western cultures are much more conservative than ours, especially where family values are concerned. My university students who live at home are expected to share in family meals. The women have curfews. Both genders live at home until marriage. While we value the independence of finishing college, getting a job, and leaving home, that is not a standard expectation with my students. This is only one example of a cultural norm that may seem strange to us, but by asking questions and having an open mind, we can gain much toward building the relationship. Repertoire choices are significant in any culture, but especially important when you don't want to violate anyone's sense of self. My students are sophisticated and mature, loving and kind, but they may seem naive to someone from the West. You are no doubt already choosing repertoire to build skills, but also choose it to make a positive cultural impact. I have a young male student whose father is Lebanese and whose mother is German. He speaks English, Arabic, German, and French fluently. In his first semester of study, he asked me for a song in German, and I gave him Schumann's Hör ich das Liedchen klingen from Dichterliebe, an excellent early German song for baritone. Imagine my delight when he emailed me asking for more. Finally, teaching good technique and allowing the student to experience what is within her own culture is always a good path. Here, a student is singing in Arabic but using classical technique, a win-win for us both. Thank you for listening, and I hope you got some small tidbit of value to help you teach students whose culture is different from your own. Happy teaching.